Imagine standing at the mouth of a dark, damp cave 20,000 years ago, somewhere in the frozen heart of Ice Age Europe. Behind you lies safety, warmth, and the crackle of a fire that has kept your tribe alive for generations. Outside, a howling wind sweeps across an endless white expanse, inhabited by cave lions the size of small cars, woolly mammoths, and temperatures that can freeze exposed skin in minutes. For over 100,000 years, these subterranean stone fortresses were the absolute center of human existence. They were our bedrooms, our sanctuaries, our spiritual temples, and our ultimate shields against a brutal world. Yet, if you dig into the soil of these ancient caves today, archaeologists notice a sudden, terrifying shift in the fossil record. At a specific moment in human history, our ancestors packed up their belongings, walked out of those indestructible natural bunkers, and voluntarily stepped into the open, deadly wilderness, never to return to the dark again. Why would a fragile, hairless primate give up the ultimate natural fortress to sleep out in the freezing rain? Was it a desperate flight from an unseen predator, a sudden collapse of the global environment, or something far more unsettling lurking inside the human mind? The real truth behind why Stone Age humans abandoned the caves is not what you were taught in school, and by the end of this video, you will realize that stepping out of the dark was the single most dangerous gamble our species ever took. If you are fascinated by the hidden survival secrets and terrifying instincts of our ancient ancestors, hit that like button right now, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another deep dive into prehistory. To understand why we left, you first have to understand the nightmare of actually living inside a cave. Popular culture portrays the caveman as a cozy dweller sitting peacefully by a fire, but the reality was a slow, toxic nightmare. Caves are not warm houses. They are natural refrigerators. They trap cold, damp air, maintaining a constant temperature barely above freezing year-round. Moisture drips continuously from the stone ceilings, soaking skin, rotting animal furs, and fueling the growth of deadly molds. When ancient humans lit fires inside these enclosed chambers to fight the bitter chill, they unknowingly created a death trap. Without modern chimneys, the heavy soot and toxic carbon monoxide filled the low-ceilinged rooms. Archaeologists analyzing the fossilized ribs of Ice Age humans have found devastating evidence of prehistoric black lung disease. Children and adults alike spent their short lives coughing up soot, battling chronic respiratory infections, and breathing in stagnant air thick with the smell of rotting meat, scraps, and human waste. Yet, despite this horrific environment, humans stayed inside for tens of thousands of years. Why? Because the world outside was infinitely worse. Outside the cave mouth lay a landscape dominated by hypercarnivores, specifically evolved to hunt primates. Cave bears standing 12 feet tall on their hind legs claimed the deepest chambers, while cave hyenas hunted and coordinated. Packs capable of crushing human bones with a single bite. The cave was a miserable, health-destroying environment, but it was the only thing standing between early humans and total extinction. So what changed? What could possibly force a species to abandon its only proven shelter and take its chances in the open shadows? For decades, mainstream science pointed to a single obvious culprit: the climate. As the last ice age began to thaw, the massive glaciers that covered huge portions of the globe started to retreat. The climate warmed, ice sheets melted into roaring rivers, and forests began to swallow the open tundras. On paper, it sounds like an ancient paradise, a welcoming gift from nature. But for cave-dwelling humans, it was an absolute catastrophe. Picture the cave system as an anchor tied to a specific patch of land. For millennia, megafauna like reindeer, bison, and mammoths migrated across vast open steppes. From their elevated cave perches, human hunters could watch the plains below, spot a herd from miles away, run down out of the rocks, make a kill, and haul the meat back to their fortress. It was a predictable, highly efficient system. But as the planet warmed and dense, dark forests expanded, those massive herds broke apart. Animals scattered into smaller, highly mobile groups deep inside thick woodlands. Suddenly, sitting inside a fixed stone cave was no longer a viable survival strategy. If the food moved 50 miles away into the newly grown forest, staying in your cave meant slow, agonizing starvation. Humans were forced to become mobile ghosts, tracking game across shifting territories. Yet, climate change is only a small piece of a much stranger puzzle. If humans simply needed to follow the food, they could have used caves as seasonal bases, returning to them during the brutal winter months. But they didn't. They abandoned them completely, rejecting natural, stone shelters even in regions where caves were abundant and the weather remained unforgiving. To find the true reason, Scientists had to look past the weather and examine a profound shift inside the human brain itself. Around 40,000 years ago, something extraordinary ignited within our species, an event evolutionary biologists call the Great Human Leap or the Cognitive Revolution. Before this period, human stone tools had remained virtually identical for over 100,000 years. A hand axe from 150,000 years ago looked almost indistinguishable from one made 50,000 years ago. But suddenly, an explosion of hyper-innovation shattered the status quo. Humans began crafting intricate bone needles, tailored waterproof clothing from animal hides, engineered complex compound weapons like the spear thrower, and invented woven cordage for netting and snares. This technological explosion completely flipped the survival equation. For the first time in history, humans no longer needed nature to provide them with a roof. Armed with bone needles, tough animal sinew, and flexible wooden poles, our ancestors invented the world's first portable architecture, the mammoth-bone hut and the heavy hide tent. Archaeologists excavating sites across modern-day Ukraine and Russia have unearthed mind-boggling structures, built entirely from the massive bones of woolly mammoths. Dozens of mammoth skulls were arranged in a tight circle to form a heavy, wind-proof foundation, while long ivory tusks were arched overhead to create a dome framework, draped in thick overlapping reindeer skins. Inside, these man-made shelters were warmer, drier, and far healthier than any damp, soot-filled cave. Humans had effectively cracked the code of artificial insulation. We had learned to carry our own caves with us wherever we went. However, moving out of the rocks and into engineered tents created a terrifying new problem, one that almost wiped out our species before it even began. A cave has only one entrance. You light a small fire at the narrow mouth, stack a few sharp wooden stakes, and 2 guards can easily defend an entire tribe from a pack of hunting wolves or a prowling saber-toothed cat. A tent camp pitched out in the open tall grass, on the other hand, has a 360-degree vulnerability zone. You are exposed from every single angle. Night falls, the wind howls, and the darkness surrounding. Your hide tent becomes an endless killing zone for nocturnal predators who can see, hear, and smell 10 times better than you ever could. Why would we choose such extreme vulnerability? Because alongside our physical technology, we unlocked an invisible, psychological weapon that turned us from defensive prey into the most terrifying predator on the planet. That weapon was social supernetworking. Inside a cave, a human tribe was limited by physical space. A single cave chamber can only hold 20, maybe 30 individuals before resources, air quality, and internal tensions collapsed the group. But when humans moved out onto the open plains, free from the spatial confines of stone walls, small family bands began linking up with one another. They formed massive, interconnected social networks numbering hundreds of individuals. They developed complex symbolic languages, shared regional maps, traded high-grade flint across hundreds of miles, and coordinated mega-hunts involving multiple tribes. Imagine a pack of cave lions stalking a human settlement out on the open steppe at midnight. In the past, they would be hunting isolated, terrified primates huddled in the dark. Now they were approaching a fortified super colony. Dozens of campfires blazed in a perimeter, creating a massive wall of light and heat. Armed sentries stood guard, equipped with long-range projectile weapons like the atlatl, capable of launching a spear at 80 miles per hour from 50 yards away. If a predator attacked, it was no longer fighting 5 desperate humans in a dark corner. It was facing 50 coordinated hunters acting with a single, unified mind, communicating with tactical precision, and wielding stored kinetic energy. We didn't need the stone walls of a cave anymore, because we had constructed an impenetrable wall made of fire, social trust, and deadly distance technology. Yet there is one final, chilling theory that scientists rarely speak about publicly, a dark, psychological motive that may have driven our ancestors out of the caves forever. It is the concept of psychological toxicity and the fear of the unseen. Caves are quiet, echoing, and sensory-depriving places. When you sit in total subterranean darkness for hours, your brain begins to play horrifying tricks on you. Deprived of visual light, the mind manufactures vivid hallucinations, monstrous shapes dancing in the shadows, and phantom voices echoing through the limestone tunnels. For early humans whose worldviews were deeply rooted in animism and spirit worship, the deep cave was not just a pile of rocks. It was a living, breathing portal to the underworld, a place where the spirits of the dead, terrifying demons, and ancient forces resided. As early humans spent generations burying their deceased family members beneath the dirt floors of their cave homes, a subtle, disturbing psychological weight began to build. Imagine sleeping every single night, directly on top of the decaying bones of your ancestors, breathing in the damp mold, surrounded by pitch-black tunnels that seem to swallow the light of your torches. Archaeologists have discovered numerous cave sites that were suddenly and abruptly abandoned. Despite having plenty of food nearby, with stone tools, precious ornaments, and carved figurines left scattered on the ground as if the inhabitants fled in a state of absolute panic. Did a deadly invisible pathogen sweep through the enclosed, unventilated cave chambers, wiping out half the tribe and convincing the survivors that the cave itself was cursed? Did the psychological toll of living in a dark, subterranean grave finally push the human spirit to its breaking point? When our ancestors finally stood at the mouth of the cave, looked out at the terrifying sunlit horizon, and took that first step into the open unknown, they were closing the chapter on our species' childhood. They chose the dangerous freedom of the open sky over the toxic safety of the dark. They traded the natural protection of the earth for the infinite possibilities of human ingenuity. Leaving the caves was the ultimate declaration that Homo sapiens would no longer adapt to fit the world. We were going to reshape the world to fit us. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the terrifying survival struggles of our ancient ancestors, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Right now, it helps immensely in bringing these hidden historical stories to life. I want to hear from you in the comments below. Do you think you could have survived a single night out in the open, Ice Age wilderness? Or would you have stayed in the toxic safety of the cave? Let me know your thoughts down below. And tell me what mysterious topic or ancient survival question we should tackle in our next video. Thank you for watching and stay curious.